Ben Tompkins. Ben, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Good. No, awesome to be here. First time, so I'm excited.
All right, so I want to go back to May 19th, 2024. You probably remember the day. The Melfort Mustangs lose the Centennial Cup 1-0 to Collingwood, the Blues. What were the emotions like after that hockey game? Because we followed the adventure of the Mustangs all the way through the Centennial Cup, and then they make it to the final only to lose, and it was 1-0. What was that like?
Yeah, I think they tell you as a broadcaster not to get emotionally involved, but it was really hard not to. There was a lot of tears, but there was a lot of pride. I mean, tied the best season in Melfort Mustangs franchise history with a, national final berth. And I'm sure any team in Canada, if you said you're going to get a crack at the national gold, you're going to take it, even if you lose. But yeah, it was a lot of tears. It was a very quiet bus ride back to the hotel for sure. But I think once we got over that first hour of disappointment that you were a goal away from bringing it to overtime and anything can happen, then I think pride started to settle in. We obviously had a good time at the hotel that night and then had to fly right back, and the community greeted us so well. But yeah, it was tough. It was heartbreaking. It was the biggest game of for me, for any of the players, for the coaches, it was the biggest game you can dream of. It's the final game of the year. There's nothing after that, so to lose it is tough. But I think there's obviously lots of pride in making it, being second best out of 156 teams.
So with that, getting that close, but not achieving the goal, and Melfort returned a lot of players this year. Is there unfinished business? And did you see something from the start of training camp to make you think that there are some players here that think that, no, we still got a job to complete that we didn't last year?
Without a doubt. If there was two words to describe this season, it was unfinished business, 100%. Even a week after we lost, it was, guys who were coming back. They wanted to get there. They wanted to do it again. And I haven't ever seen a more determined team, from the start of training camp. There's a reason we, basically went wire to wire and first set a franchise record in wins. It was, we weren't overlooking the SJHL season by any means, but, it's weird to say out of all 12 teams, I think we came in with the biggest chip on our shoulder, which, typically as a champion, you don't come in with a chip on your shoulder, but absolutely all the guys that were there, even the guys that have gone on and, I've talked to and continue to stay with the team and watch and whatnot. It's absolutely, it was, we have to win because we're getting back. And if we get in that game again, we're not going to lose again. There's not a chance. So absolutely unfinished business would be the perfect way to put it for sure.
Trevor Blevins, coach, it starts there. What makes him so special? Why is there such a connection with that team and the community?
Well, I mean, hometown boy, played for the Mustangs. He was exactly the player he wants as a coach when he played, 20, 30 years ago. It's, hardworking, community oriented, just not going to lose a battle, going to lay it all out on the line. And I think the players buy into that because he's been there, done that as a player. But, if you don't buy in after last year, then I don't know what's wrong with you. Clearly his motto works, his program works. He respects the players. He's honest with the players. He demands a lot out of them, but if you give it to him, he rewards you for sure. And he's the old school coach where he thinks he's too hard on the players, but he's really not. He always works that line to perfection. He wants the best out of you, but he's not gonna grill you. But he knows, and the players know what's expected of them and what they can give. So I think it's kind of the perfect line for sure that he's able to walk and just gets the best out of everyone.
Now, with so many teams in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League, and we're kind of like try and be the conduit to all, and we don't necessarily play favorites. So on that Melfort roster, who are some of the stars that they're going to go to the final and they end up Centennial Cup, and we're watching who makes it happen night in, night out for the Mustangs?
is going to be a cop-out answer, but everyone, I think our team is different than last year. Not that we didn't have depth. We had, a ton of injuries throughout the season and through playoffs, and guys had to step up, and they did. But talking with the coach and even assistant coach Ty Sugar, he had to rely a lot on the Hutchinson, Sleva, Duguay line, the Olofsson and Friedmore on the back end, and of course Ben and net. And I'm not saying we don't have guys like that this year, but the way he said he can roll out any line anytime, and there's no nerves, there's no worry like, oh, are they going to get it done, are they going to get scored on, are they going to be able to generate any chances? Yeah, you have the Riley Kotais, who's top scorer, and the Nick Andrusiak's defenseman in the year, and obviously they're most skilled guys in the leagues for sure. But I think the fact that everyone can be out there, our third line was out against Yorkton's top line every time in round 2, and they got shut down. Like it's just everyone knows how to do their job, and they can step up, and more guys will get more points, of course, because they're a little bit more skilled and they might get a little bit more ice time. But there's no guys on the team that are going to be a minus on the regular and couldn't score a big goal in a big time.
Ben Tompkins, play-by-play voice of the Melfort Mustangs, joining us on the Western Pizza Guest Hotline. We're talking about the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. So the Mustangs are in the final. They're awaiting Flin Flon, Weyburn. That'll be Game 6 tonight in Weyburn. We're going to get more into that as the show goes on. Now, you said Melfort wire to wire this year, and it has been. But along the way, although there a lot of wins, more wins than losses, there had to have been some adversity or things to overcome. What did the team have to deal with? Because it's not like you went on a 15-game losing streak or anything like that. But from your perspective, what were some of the things that they had to overcome as a group?
So it was different this year in the fact that, it wouldn't be a 2 or a 3 or 4 game losing streak, but it would be bad periods. We'd, play 5 games in a row where, we only played 40 minutes of hockey. So I think the way we responded in games, look at our record in 1-goal games, like 18-1 or something ridiculous. It was the fact that, we would get down, we would give up the first goal, we would, trail into the second period, or we, get outplayed for 15 minutes and then score late to tie it. It was just things like that where it was more adversity game by game, not a stretch of games. And yeah, we'd have big guys go out, or, we'd have calls not go our way, or a bad bounce, or a bad turnover or whatever. But it was the fact of, I've never seen a team change so much from period to period. We'd play a horrible first period. I don't know what Blevs or Shugs would tell them in the intermission, but all of a sudden we'd come out and we'd look like a completely different team. And in junior hockey, that's rare. You get down, you get frustrated, you get down on yourself, you just kind of give up. But we really look like a professional team where we wouldn't allow ourselves to play a full 60 minutes of poor effort. It would be a stretch, and we'd fix it right away. And sometimes, we wouldn't have time to come back. And a loss is a loss. But Blevins has talked the whole way. It's not always about the wins or the losses. It's about how you win, how you lose. And I don't think there was a lot of games this year where we lost, where we weren't in it at least for a point of the game.
It's funny that you mentioned that. Is there a loss that comes to mind where you end up losing, but the learning or the benefit down the road 1, 2, 3, 4 games later really paid dividends, where it was kind of like, oh, that's exactly the shock that we needed to get us going?
I think every time we lost, because I'm not trying to brag. Obviously it wasn't a lot this year, but every time we lost, we'd respond. We'd realize what we did wrong, what the boys did wrong. They'd understand, and every loss was a lesson. I know that sounds cliche, but it really was, because they were far and few between, and sometimes we had to get humbled. Like, for example, when we were 17-game winning streak, we go into Battleford's there, we have a chance to break the modern record. We tied it, which is awesome, but they were more desperate. They wanted that game more. They played lights out, and it was a close game, but we lost. And I think we lost in Yorkton, or I guess didn't lose in the Yorkton, but we lost a week later in some game, I forget against who. Sorry, not trying to take a shot there at Yorkton, but just the fact that it was like, we had the target on our backs, and sometimes we had to be taken off our pedestal or a mantle, but it didn't last long.
If you're watching the stream, Ben Tompkins, I can see that there's a guitar in the background. I'm going to ask you about that in just a second. You may have to pick that up. Anyways, Weyburn,
No.
Flin Flon. Weyburn is up 3-2. You've seen these teams all year. A lot of us, last week when we were doing the preview of this, there was three of us. There was me, Dave, and Jamie, and it was just a matter of how many games it was going to take for Flin Flon to beat Weyburn. And it wasn't 6 or 7, and nobody thought that the Red Wings were ever going to go up 3-0. Why has Weyburn been able to win these 3 games? What makes them... You got to be good to be still playing at this time of year. What, in your mind, makes Weyburn good? Why have they been so effective?
Honestly, I think it's very similar to what we did against Flin Flon in the finals last year. Flin Flon was the cream of the crop all year. They were expected to go to the Centennial Cup. I think they were ranked number 1 in the country for a while there. And it's just something where, if you get in there and you kind of get them down early, sometimes it's tough for them to respond. And, Whitney Forum is not easy to play in, but when you get the crowd out of it early and you keep them out of there, it doesn't feel like an away game anymore. Cause I don't want to say they get quiet, but they're loud. When things are going good, they got momentum, they're roaring, they're, damn near impossible to stop. But when you kind of get in on them early, when you don't play into their hands, when you just out battle them in what is a very tight rink, then you can kind of get in their heads, and it's tough for them to come back. So I think Weyburn was just more prepared, maybe the more hungry team to start, and they used their speed, they used their skill, and obviously Zoll played great as well. Flin Flon throws a lot of pucks on the net, so if you're giving up rebounds, it can be a long night. But if you keep them to the outside, then typically you're in pretty good shape.
Bigger problem to stop, the Flin Flon offense or Matt Keeper in net? Or both?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously they got extreme weapons up front, guys like Keith Gerner and even Liam Hunks on the back end, who they added from Notre Dame. I mean, you saw Keeper's, numbers. Flin Flon was, I think, 3-6 to start the year. They didn't look good. He comes in and he's 24-2, 1-1 or something. So when he's hot, he's hot. I mean, it is hard to stop him. There's a reason he was obviously in the dub at one point, but I would lean Keeper just because, I think for stretches he can be, the best player in the league for 2 weeks. And yeah, that Flin Flon offense is hard to stop and it keeps coming at you, but I think you can figure it out. Sometimes you'll play Flin Flon and, you get a lot of shots on net, but, you can't force the goalie not to make some ridiculous saves. Like, you can put all on him, but if he's going, then you just kind of have to tip your cap at that point.
All right, so you're patiently waiting. Flin Flon and Weyburn, they'll play Game 6 tonight in Weyburn. If the Red Wings happen to win tonight, then it's Melfort, Weyburn in the final. If not, Flin Flon, Game 7, Whitney Forum, like you said, tough place to play. All right, Ben Tompkins, play-by-play voice of the Melfort Mustangs. What's your favorite rink in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League to call a game in? For 2 reasons. One, these can be different answers. Press box being one, pregame meal being other. Okay, so press box, pregame meal, because some do great at one and horrible at others.
It's honestly, we get the same pregame meal every time. It's the chicken and rice and vegetables, so it's hard to mess that up, I guess. So I'll say that every place I've gone, or at least that we've done a pregame meal at, it's worked. So press box, the one in Estevan's, pretty nice just because you get a whole side to yourself. Obviously, it's a brand new rink, and the boys can be up there with me. As far as atmosphere, though, I have to go either at home or in Flin Flon because it's fun to be the away guy. I only get to do home games on the radio in the playoffs, but when the Palace is packed, when it's sold out, it's a fun place to be. And when you're not just yelling by yourself when your team scores, when the whole building's erupting, it's a pretty awesome for sure. It's hard to go against the home crowd.
Having done a little bit of hockey play-by-play earlier in my career, when you think it's a huge responsibility, like you have the immense responsibility to paint that picture to everybody that is listening and hang on every word when it comes to hockey. All right, so let's see. What's the bus ride from Melfort to Flin Flon? What are we looking at there?
4 hours on a good day, 4.5 probably normally.
Okay, and then Weyburn, it's about 3.
Oh, 4 hours. I would
About
say
4 hours. Way better highway if you're going to Weyburn, and a KFC with a buffet. Although you guys are eating chicken and rice. Now, if you said it was KFC and rice, that's a different story. But I don't know if it's in the hockey rink. So that guitar behind you, can you actually play that?
No, not very well. I got it as a gift a while ago, and I have yet to take lessons. So I probably should hit it a little more. It's just decoration right now.
Well, hey, if it does the trick, like I still remember, everybody tried to learn how to play Smoke on the Water. Now, for the Double C's who are producing the show and yourself, I know you guys are a little younger, big song from the 70s, but apparently that's what everybody tried to learn when they got an acoustic guitar was Smoke on the Water by Deep Purple. I'm not going to ask you to play that. Maybe Night Train by Jason Aldean if you did. I don't know. That'd be great. All right. So what do you do now to kill time? Because let's see, if it goes to 7, let's see, game 7 would be, if it's Monday, would game 7 be Wednesday? And then hopefully the final is going to kick off on the weekend. Is that sort of how the mock schedule is laid out for the final to get rolling this weekend?
Yeah, that should how it be. Would be games. Regardless, I think we're going Friday, Saturday at home. But yeah, I believe game 7 would be Wednesday. That's how it worked for us, anyways. Last year when we played Humboldt, it was a pretty quick turnaround. So.
All right. And if we don't like that, we'll just call Kyle McIntyre and say, this doesn't work for us. Can we just move this a couple of days? There's a lot going on, I think the
boys are ready to get going.
Okay.
We've been idle for a while.
Did you watch the Masters yesterday?
Yes. If I didn't, I think I should go to jail. It's a must watch.
Okay. Now, I'm going to ask you. So, Rory, it was a roller coaster, but when he missed on 18, I wanted to know, okay, does karma and the gods, should they reward you for missing a putt that short, and going to extra holes? I'm off the Rory train. I don't know. If Justin Rose wins, Justin Rose is hot. He deserves it. But Rory got it together. What were your thoughts? Team Rory or the field?
Well, I was just because it's obviously history, and he had battled that for so long. Obviously his collapse in 2011, hadn't won a major since 2014. So absolutely I was Team Rory. But yeah, once he missed that putt on 18, I didn't think he was gonna win. I didn't think he deserved to win. But even look at the couple of shots before that, right? He had the shot on 15, he had the shot on 17, the ridiculous bending outs where he's got an eagle putt or a birdie. He missed both. It just seemed like a game, man. Your putter's letting you down. You can't get 4 double bogeys and win a Masters. You can't miss 5-foot putts after these heroic shots. It seemed like moments that were made for TV, and then it was just kind of a letdown. In all honesty, it was almost anticlimactic by the end, but it was so much emotion that it still made up for a great moment.
It made for some great TV. If you're all I wanted, because making up scenarios in my head, Jim Nantz, who's the best? Wouldn't it have been great if all of a sudden on that 18th hole, Tony Romo all of a sudden appears and screams out the play before it happens, just as Nance is finishing a syllable, just over the top to go from there. All right, so let's switch back to hockey. Our Twitter poll question: Flames 2 points out, 2 games left. Do they make the Stanley Cup playoffs?
Yeah, I think it's too little, too late. Which again might be a cop-out answer, but St. Louis, they might be the team of destiny like they were in 2019. Obviously, the Wild, you feel for them and losing Kaprizov early in the year. But I don't know. I think it would be a fun playoff matchup for sure, and especially for a Jets team that has something to prove in the playoffs. That would be a fun Canadian battle. But yeah, I don't know. There was times, I think, a couple weeks ago where Calgary, all of a sudden they're coming up and then they lose a couple. They're coming up, they lose a couple. It's almost like that Rory thing, but the Rory thing seems more destined, I guess, because it was so long. This Calgary team, are they skilled enough to be in the playoffs? Dustin Wolf has been playing great. I get it, they're a gritty team, but it's is making the playoffs a good thing?
Well, they're stuck in the murky middle, and they've screwed themselves for a good draft pick. All right, so we'll wrap on this. If you've got skin in the game, who's your NHL teamer? Who are you? If you were in Vegas right now, who you putting money on? Oh, and how can you not feel great about Gabriel Landeskog and scoring that goal on the weekend? Like, nobody's adding punch to their lineup. Like, if he comes back, and there's nothing to say that he shouldn't be able to. Wow. What, not only talent wise, but what a shot in the arm. Hasn't played since June 2022. Gabriel Landeskog. All right. Ben Tompkins. Let's do this again. Play-by-play guy, voice of the Melfort Mustangs right here on the SportsCage.